And a good Saturday afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, the drama-free true crime destination. Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw here. It's so good to have everybody in the house once again. And like I said in the promo, or in the description, another week in the books, and it has been a wild one. So I suggest you strap yourself in. We're about to go on a wild ride. First thing I'm gonna do is bring you to a missing persons case I've dealt with in the past. And so you just sit tight. We're gonna get things going in just a split second. Here we are. The young lady you see on the left side of your screen is Shelby Lynn Dwyer. Get a good look at her because I profiled her before. She's been missing since. Wow, this is kind of an update. They counted her missing as of March 29th, 2023, out of Guamachil, Sinaloa, Mexico. To give you a brief update, if you don't remember, she's at the time of her disappearance. She stood about 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighed around 100 pounds, with brown hair, brown eyes. She has the following tattoos on her. She has a rose on her right hand, a design on her right middle finger, and the word "bless" in fancy writing on her right forearm. Here's all the details. Seattle's field office, the FBI Seattle field office, is working with the Des Moines, Iowa Police Department in Washington. Okay. Des Moines Police Department in Washington, the United States government, and Mexican authorities to conduct a formal investigation into the disappearance of Shelby Lynn Dwyer. On March 25th, 2023, Dwyer voluntarily left the Des Moines, Washington area and traveled to Mexico via car. Dwyer maintained sporadic communication with her family, but stopped that communication around March 29th. Dwyer is believed to have traveled to Tijuana, Mexico. She likely traveled by plane from Tijuana and had a layover in Guadalajara, then arrived to Culiacan, Sinaloa. Shelby was last believed to have been in the area of Guamachil, Sinaloa, Mexico around March 29th. She has not been heard from since that time. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $5,000, leading to the recovery of Shelby Lynn Dwyer. If you have any information regarding Shelby Lynn Dwyer's disappearance, you are asked, first of all, not to hesitate on this. Any information you can give could very well be helpful, and in the course, bring Shelby Lynn Dwyer back home safe and sound. You are asked to call 911, your local FBI office, or you can submit your tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Any information you can give could be very beneficial to bringing Shelby back home safe and sound. So please, if you see something, say something. I got Jennifer Heinehole in my chat. How you doing, Jen? Good to see you, and yeah, I'm hoping all is well with you too. All right. Now, like I said, I got a lineup and a half, and it's been a wild week. So let's get started with the story, and happy Easter to you and your family too, Jan. Thank you. Let's begin with this story. Yeah, there was a shooting outside of an Indianapolis bar. 1 dead, 5 injured. Off-duty police officer also injured, but was transported to the hospital in stable condition. This is the crime scene you're looking at, and as you can see, this is from one of my other Other news and crime news and legal gathering sources, Scripps News. This is out of Indianapolis, ladies and gentlemen. One person is dead and 5 others injured, including a police officer, after a shooting broke out outside of an Indianapolis bar on last Sunday morning. According to the Indianapolis Metro Police Department, around 1:30 a.m., 2 IMPD officers in full uniform were working off-duty employment at the 1111 Bar and Grill located at 9449 East Washington Street, where there was a disturbance in the parking lot. Police said at some point, gunfire was exchanged between the 2 officers and at least one suspect, resulting in one officer being shot. The injured officer was transported to the hospital in stable condition. According to the IMPD, they found a total of 4 civilians shot at the scene, including 3 males ages 42 and two gentlemen 45, and a 33-year-old female. The victims were said to have been transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. A short time later, police said an additional adult male victim would arrive at the hospital, but he did not survive. Detectives believe he was shot at the scene. The police are still working to learn how all the individuals sustained their injuries. One gun was recovered at the scene. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office responded to the scene to assist in the investigation. Multiple officers had body cameras, which were activated during the incident. The Indianapolis Marion County Forensic Services Agency responded to identify and collect potential forensic evidence. The IMPD Critical Incident Response Team responded to the scene to conduct the criminal investigation. IMPD Internal Affairs is conducting a separate administrative investigation. The officers who fired their firearms have been placed on administrative leave, as is standard procedure in an officer-involved shooting investigation. The Civilian Majority Use of Force Review Board will conduct a mandatory hearing for any attempted use of deadly force against a person. This occurs after the conclusion of the criminal process. So we got one, like I said at the in the title, 1 dead, 5 injured, and a couple of officers on administrative leave. We're still waiting to figure out exactly how this is going to go. Who's involved as far as who's the ones who are pulling the trigger on the opposite end. When we get that information, I'll be sure to share that with you as well. Now, the next story, I want to give you a heads up. I want to give you a bit of a trigger warning. For myself personally, this made me sick. When I present it to you, it will make you sick as well. Which is why I always bring these trigger warnings. If this story triggers something in your mental health and you can't handle it, turn away now before I start it. Yeah. Here it comes. All right. New evidence shows the severity of abuse in the Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrand cases. As you remember, in February, both Jody and Ruby have both pled guilty and were sentenced to 4 1 to 15-year terms in prison. Now, personally, ladies and gentlemen, I hope they do spend the full 60. And even Scripps News is giving you a warning. The content in this article is graphic and depicts injuries consistent with abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. All right. I'm gonna get out of the way of. I'm gonna get myself out of the way of this shot, and I'm gonna let you watch this video in its entirety.
The footage shows just how emaciated these children were and the depths of the abuse. We warn you that some of these images depict child abuse. The first video we'll show you is from a neighbor's doorbell camera.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could do 2 favors.
Well, what are they?
August 30th of last year, one of the children living in the Frankie Hildebrand home in Ivins walks to a neighbor to ask for help.
Taking me to the nearest police station. Well, actually, just one's fine.
What's going on?
The neighbors realize something is the matter.
We need the police here now.
They're on the line.
As EMTs treat the boy, officers go to the Frankie Hildebrand house. Here's police pulling Hildebrand out of the doorway so they can begin a search.
You come in, my buddy. I'm a police officer.
In one clip, an officer brings a child a box of pizza and a drink. 2 minutes pass before the child opens the lid and begins eating. Law enforcement also provided these photos showing scarring and duct tape around a child's ankles and feet. Documents note bandages and wounds. Police blurred the children's faces and redacted much of what they said to officers. When this officer asked the child who tied ropes on him, we don't hear the answer, but we do hear the officer's follow-up question.
Supposed to help you what?
We're just here to talk to you about kind of a few things involving your kids.
Frankie and Hildebrand were near silent when detectives questioned them.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer. So I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything.
Officers arrest the women later that night.
All right, I'm gonna have you stand up, all right? I just don't want to. It's gonna be 2 counts, second-degree felony of child abuse or neglect, okay?
Law enforcement also provided a journal from Frankie that discusses the abuse and neglect, including whipping a child with a belt. There's also religious references. You can read more about those journals on fox13now.com. Both Frankie and Hildebrand are serving 4 prison terms, each carrying 1 to 15 years in prison. We expect to learn any day when the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole might first consider them for parole. In the studio, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Now, guys, that was only just a small taste of what those kids had to deal with. There's so much that's detailed. Thanks to Scripps News Salt Lake City, there's so much detail here. I can't even go through it all. But just seeing all that in 2 minutes, I can only imagine the horrors those kids had to go through. As far as I'm concerned, Jody, Hildebrand, and Ruby Frankie are in the right place right now. And again, I hope they get the full 60 years. Both of them. I'm gonna move onward as quickly as possible. Even though there's so much I've got lined up here. All right. Becky Hill. She tendered her resignation, but it's not anything related to the Alex Murdaugh investigation. At least not in the trial ethics investigation. Here's the here's the breakdown. Excuse me. Becky Hill, who served as clerk of court for Alex Murdaugh's murder trial, has announced her resignation amid two open ethics investigations into allegations of jury tampering. At a press conference on Monday, Hill's attorney Justin Bamberg repeatedly stated that the announcement was in the best interest of the Colleton County constituents and unrelated to any new developments regarding her alleged interactions with the jury in South Carolina versus Alex Murdaugh, or allegations that she used her elected position for personal gain. Hill positively reflected on her role during one of the biggest trials in South Carolina history, but says the global attention and public scrutiny has caused her to reflect on her stay in office. Quote, "After much reflection, I have decided that it is best not to run again for re-election. I will now be able to focus on being a wife, a mother, and a grandmother to my two grandboys, and will be spending time with the people who mean the most to me. With the upcoming election, I was to ensure that I provided ample time for any other Republican candidates who may be interested in this position." End quote. Hill was thrust into the national spotlight when Murdaugh's defense attorney filed a motion seeking a new trial, which alleged Hill made inappropriate comments to the jury that suggested Murdaugh's guilt. The jury tampering issues boiled down to a handful of jurors who testified to Hill's concerning behavior, including going into a bathroom with a forewoman and instructing the jury not to be fooled by Murdaugh's defense. Hill's son, Jeffrey Hill, had separately been arrested and charged with wiretapping after allegedly illegally recording conversations involving a deputy county administrator during the murder trial. The ethics investigation also included allegations that Hill had used her position as clerk to promote a book she co-authored about the murders and trial entitled Behind the Doors of Justice. The book came under fire when its co-author, Neil Gordon, discovered a 12-page passage in the preface that had been plagiarized. Hill said that in a press release that she was deeply remorseful for the plagiarism and that book sales have been halted. Honestly, Becky Hill was smart enough to get out while the heat was on her. And with the heat, and with that kind of heat on her, she should have made, as my wife would say, she should have been made as Switzerland. She's supposed to be the clerk of a court, not siding any one way or another. If the decision's up to the jury, not the clerk of the court. So let's just hope for the best as far as those investigations go, and Becky Hill can clear herself. Now, guys, this is what I meant when I said that we had a wild week this past week, and this is where it truly began.
Federal Homeland Security agents and other law enforcement officers are searching 2 sprawling homes belonging to Sean Diddy Combs. The homes are in Los Angeles and Miami, and this is all part of a sex trafficking investigation. Now, it's not clear if Combs was the target of the investigation. They are his homes. An attorney for Combs didn't respond to requests for comment at this time. There have been multiple sexual assault lawsuits filed against Combs in recent months, including a lawsuit from singer Cassie that was settled last year very quickly by Combs. Another of Combs' accusers was a woman who said that he raped her 2 decades ago when she was just 17 years old. Well, Cassie's attorney released this statement saying, "We will always support law enforcement when it seeks to prosecute those that have violated the law. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a process that will hold Mr. Combs responsible for his depraved conduct." And of course, we'll be following that story for you.
Involved in some way. Hey, so keep your eyes peeled because I've got more articles coming. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this one is sick. A man's hidden camera in a Starbucks bathroom records 91 victims. This is out of San Jose, ladies and gentlemen. The San Jose Police Department said the camera contained footage of people ages 4 to 85 using the restroom. 4 to 85? What in the world? A California man is facing multiple charges after authorities found a hidden camera he allegedly placed in a Starbucks bathroom, allowing him to record dozens of victims, including children, as they use the facilities. Detectives with the San Jose Police Department spent weeks searching for the suspect, now identified as Luis Juarez Jr., after being called into the coffee shop on January 31st. Someone said someone had found the camera underneath the restroom sink facing the toilet. That's according to the San Jose Police Department on last Wednesday. The department's Sexual Assault Investigations Unit discovered the camera contained footage recorded from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on January 30th. This single day of footage caught more than 91 victims, ranging in age from 4 years of age to 85, using the restroom. These videos are extremely graphic and contain multiple juvenile victims, fully exposed, the department said in a press release. San Jose Police Department Special Operations Merge Unit found and arrested Juarez on March 15th in San Jose after obtaining arrest and residential search warrants. The department said the execution of the latter revealed 20 firearms were inside a 35-year-old's home, including an assault rifle, an unregistered firearm, high-capacity magazines, and other miscellaneous micro cameras, according to the department. One, according to photos released by the department, appears to look like a soccer ball keychain. Juarez was booked into Santa Clara County Main Jail on possession charges of child pornography, high-capacity magazines, assault rifle, and an unregistered firearm. He faces a charge of installment of hidden surveillance camera with audio, according to the department. In a statement obtained by CBS News, Starbucks thanked the San Jose Police Department for its quick, thorough response in the deeply disturbing incident. We cannot overstate the importance of providing a safe environment for our customers and partners We will continue to cooperate fully with law enforcement on this matter, the statement read. California law states that it's illegal to invade a person's privacy if a person has done so in an area where a person reasonably expects privacy. If the invasion was done with the intent to encroach on the person's privacy, and if the invasion was done by using an instrument, like a camera, all without consent or knowledge of the other person. Anyone who believes they may have been captured on the hidden camera found at 695 Coleman Avenue in San Jose, you're asked to contact Detective Lippert of the San Jose Police Department Sexual Assault Investigations Unit via email at 4583 at sanjoseseca.gov. 4583 at sanjoseca.gov, or by phone at 408-277-4102. 408-277-4102. As far as Juarez is concerned, I hope and I pray they throw the book at him. It's amazing. People can't even go to the restroom at a Starbucks without being infringed on. That's crazy. All right. Next up, this is the last story I got from Monday. A Michigan man is arrested after allegedly stabbing a pregnant woman to death. Authorities said the woman was stabbed multiple times before she and her unborn baby succumbed to injuries. Let's watch this, and maybe this will give you an idea as to what everything that happened.
Thank you for joining us on 7 Action News at 10. I'm Simon Shaiket. We begin with a disturbing story out of Sterling Heights. Police there investigating what started off as a welfare check, revealing the killing of a pregnant woman and her unborn baby. 7 Action News reporter Tierra Braddock has the latest in this investigation.
We do not know the name of the victim or the suspect yet, but what we do know is that a pregnant woman was killed on Sunday, and police were initially called here to the Sterling Park apartments, but the woman's body was found 10 miles away.
Heartbreaking, especially in this community. You really don't hear about nothing like that happening here.
Anthony Parker lives in the Sterling Park apartments on 18 Mile Road, where police were called to do a welfare check at around 3 a.m. Sterling Heights police say when they got inside the apartment in question, no one was there. But they did notice blood in the hallway.
I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was like, I didn't hear any gunshots. I was telling my wife, I was like, I wonder what happened.
A little while after the welfare check, Clinton Township police got a call to the 35,000 block of Harper Ave. There, they found a man covered in blood and a pregnant woman who had been stabbed multiple times. Unfortunately, the woman and her unborn baby both died.
Sorry to hear it, especially with the little one. It's tragic.
When it comes to violence against women, Yvette Brown from the Women's Shelter Haven of Oakland County says incidents like this one happen way too often.
Unfortunately, we get these type of calls daily at Haven, at our crisis line. Obviously not to this extreme, but we are seeing this type of violence on a daily basis.
Brown says she was heartbroken to hear about what happened to this pregnant mom and her unborn baby. And she wasn't the only one.
That's the most tragic part, and it's probably over something senseless too, honestly, something that could have been preventable.
If you know anything that will help police piece together exactly what happened, make sure you contact the Sterling Heights Police Department. In Sterling Heights, Tierra Braddock, 7 Action News.
Let's hope the family of that woman and that unborn baby get the justice they deserve. And if anyone has any further information on this case, you're asked to call the Sterling Heights Detective Bureau at 586-446-2845. It's 586-446-2845. Now we start at Tuesday. And we start off with a Richard Allen update. The Delphi defense turns to crowdfunding to pay for expert witnesses. The defense team of the man accused of killing 2 teenage girls in Delphi, Indiana, has turned to crowdfunding to cover the cost of expert witnesses. That's according to sources confirming with Court TV. Richard Allen, charged with the murders of 2 8th graders who disappeared on February 13th, 2017, while walking the Delphi historic trails. Their bodies were found the following day, a quarter mile from where they were last seen on the Monon High Bridge. Allen, a married father who worked the local CVS, was never named a suspect until his arrest more than 5 years later. He told officials he had been on the trails the day the girls went missing, but was not looked into until 2022. Since then, Allen's legal battle has been long and contentious. David R. Hennessy, the attorney representing Allen's defense attorneys Bradley Rossi and Andrew Baldwin in the contempt case against them, confirmed that he had organized an online fundraiser seeking $25,000 to pay for Allen's expert witnesses after learning that the prosecution added experts to their witness list and that Judge Francis Gull would not approve funds for defense experts. Although relatively new, litigation crowdfunding has become increasingly popular due to escalating trial costs. Fundraising sites such as Crowd Justice and LexShares target law firms, companies, and individuals pursuing legal cases. Arguably, one of the most popular crowdfunding sites, GoFundMe, touts itself as one of the top 3 ways to pay for a lawyer. And this is the route Richard Allen is going in order to get those defense experts to help out his case. Catch you up on more of on that trial before it starts. Any new information that comes in, I will have it. Okay, now we got Corey Richards. She's facing. It wasn't bad enough that she's facing a murder charge in her husband's death, but she's got more charges too. A Utah woman accused of killing her husband in 2022 is now facing several new fraud-related charges. On this past Monday, Corey Richards was hit with 2 counts of mortgage fraud, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and 3 counts of forgery. These new charges were listed in documents obtained by Court TV. Last year, she was charged with aggravated murder and other offenses in connection with the death of her husband, Eric Richards. In the new charges, prosecutors alleged that Richards applied for a mortgage in 2021 in which he claimed a balance of $210,898 in a credit union account. According to court documents, there was actually $15,609. The document further states, when asked by a mortgage loan officer about her credit history in July 2021, Corey replied, and quote, "I recently learned about all this as well, LOL, and then my husband tried to explain to me this was his doing a while ago. We are in the process of separation for one of many reasons, but this is one of them, to keep it short and sweet, LOL. It's been crazy to say the least," end quote. Under the second mortgage fraud charge, prosecutors allege another mortgage application for Richards claimed an account balance of $702,831. She's also accused of fraudulently applying for life insurance for her husband and forging his signature just over a month before he died, then fraudulently claiming the life insurance benefits. Authorities say Richards murdered her husband by putting 5 times the lethal dosage of illicit fentanyl in his cocktail. After his death, she wrote and self-published a children's book about grief for the 3 sons she shared with her late husband. If all those charges stick and they go to trial with this woman, I can almost guarantee you not only will she be found guilty, but I can see her doing a lot of hard time. Life in prison, likely. Let's see who we got in the house. Melanie. How you doing, Melanie? Good to see you. Moving onward from Corey Richards. Oh, boy. From one crazy case to another. We go to Karen Reed. Now before I go into detail with this case, I gotta warn everybody. One, I have no stake in Karen Reed's case. I have nothing on this case. Everything you're gonna get to see and hear is coming courtesy of my good friends at Court TV, your front row seat to justice. I'm not siding with neither the prosecution nor the defense. I want to hear evidence. Okay? Pure and simple. With that, we're going to go right into this motion hearing.
I'm Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. McLaughlin. Good morning, Ms. Unetti.
Good morning, Your Honor. Ian Henke on behalf of Karen Reed. Attorney Jackson should be with us on this.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Henke. Good morning, Mr. Jackson. And good morning, Ms. Reed. All right. So in court are counsel who will argue the motions for today. And there's only Mr. Henke and Ms. Unetti. When I set dates on the modified scheduling order, I set dates that were convenient to the parties in recognition of mainly defense counsel's trial schedule. And last week I renewed the Pro Hoc Vici motion, but I see Mr. Jackson chose not to be here today, and so counsel will argue the motion here this morning. So. But before we begin, I have been told repeatedly from both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Unetti, and I do understand completely that Mr. Unetti cannot be here today. He's certainly excused from being here today. But I was told that there would be a motion for a motion to dismiss based on egregious government misconduct. I was told that by both Mr. Jackson and Mr. Unetti. I asked Mr. Unetti how that motion to dismiss was any different than the motion for sanctions and motion to disqualify the district attorney's office. He assured me that it was in fact different. He assured me that he would put in the body of the motion how it was different. And he assured me as recently as last week that that motion would be filed later that day. So that motion has not been filed. That motion then is waived. So what we have today are 2 motions regarding Rule 14 obligations. So who's going to argue? Is it Ms. Unetti or?
I will be arguing.
Okay, so I need a microphone. So I will hear you on the motion where you're looking for notes, reports, memoranda, and logs.
Thank you. Your Honor, at the outset, I just want to note that as this court is aware, we have a motion pending before the court to disqualify the Norfolk DA's office from this case. Our position, therefore, is that the DA's office should not be participating in this case or arguing any motions, including this one. And I raise this issue just to alert the court that we are not waiving any objection to their continued involvement in the case.
Okay, so I haven't decided that because I was waiting for the motion for egregious conduct, motion for sanctions or motion to dismiss based on egregious governmental misconduct, because I needed to be assured that that was different than the motion to disqualify. If I had known it was not coming, and maybe no intention of filing it, I would have decided that motion by now.
Your Honor, it was a strategic decision for us not to file a motion. It's not because it wasn't meritorious. It was a strategic decision only.
All right. You made representations that you were, therefore the other motion, I have not acted on that yet.
I just want you to note the objection, please.
Yeah, the objection's noted. Please move on to the merits of your discovery request.
Absolutely. Your Honor, we're asking for material that fits squarely within the parameters of Rule 14. Statements made to investigators in this case, including Mr. and statements were present. Statements of witnesses to the extent that these notes contain work product along with the statements, we are fine with the work product being redacted. We are not interested in their work product, but it is important for us to know whether their notes contain any statements of witnesses, and if they do, they should be turned over to us. Otherwise, discoverable material is not off limits simply because a prosecutor writes something in the margins of a document. That would give an attorney the power to keep otherwise discoverable materials out of the hands of a party who should legally be entitled to see the material. At a minimum, Your Honor, this court should order the Norfolk DA's office to disclose whether its notes contain any statements. They have not disclosed that. If the notes contain any witness statements, and if the Norfolk DA's office is objecting to producing them to the defense, then we're asking this court to have the DA's office produce those notes to the court so that this court can conduct an in-camera review of their notes and evaluate whether they are truly all work product or whether there is, in fact, discoverable material contained therein. Beyond that, Your Honor, we would rest on our motion in our brief.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lally, your response, please.
Yes, sir.
And Your Honor, I'll be brief. So essentially what the defendant's motion seeks is, and I would object to the mischaracterization of every single phone call or conversation with a witness as an interview with a witness, but I'm not even sure what half of these are referring to, as I don't recall any of those specific meetings occurring. But if there were meetings, any meeting with a witness post-grand jury was in reference to either harassment that they were sustaining as a result of actions of others in this case, or as a result of a simple explanation as to Rule 17 motions that have been filed for individuals' phones or phone records or other third-party records that they were the subject of. It's a boilerplate response because it's a boilerplate law that applies in this case as far as work product that applies to each and every one of the requests, with the exception of number 8, of which the Commonwealth has no objection to that.
Explain to me how work product applies.
Your Honor, work product applies and specifically in reference to, it's contained within, and I would largely rest on the Commonwealth's motion, but it's contained within what's cited as Beng Sia Lang, in regard to interview notes in preparation of testimony is work product under the case law, under the rule of criminal procedure. Whatever notations may be contained within those. But essentially, these are not statements as are defined under Rule 14 from any of these conversations with witnesses. Rule 14 doesn't apply to these statements, number one. But secondly, if there is any content, it's either already been provided through the course of discovery, whether it be contained within a police report, grand jury minutes. There's nothing different than what has already been provided. And then secondly, what the case law states and what Rule 14 states is that these types of conversations with witnesses, whether reduced to writing or not, are within the ambit of the work product doctrine.
All right. Any response? You don't necessarily have to, but I just want to see if you want to.
I would just say, Your Honor, their opposition to our motion does not even acknowledge whether there are statements or not statements. I just heard Mr. Lally say that there in fact are statements. So I am going to ask again that this court take those notes there and go through it and in camera and decide whether in fact all of it is work product or whether there exists within it discoverable materials with statements of witnesses. And I find it hard to believe that there wouldn't be any statements of witnesses concerning this case. Thank you.
Do you want to respond at all?
Your Honor, again, with reference to the, as they term them, interviews, but essentially phone calls with witnesses, these were in regard to explaining to them the Rule 17 process, explaining to them what counsel had filed, what types of records were being requested. It was in large part me talking as far as explaining the law and things of that nature. There were not any statements related to the case or any testimony that was discussed or anything of that nature. The one thing that I was referring to is there is one request that does deal with a meeting which involves preparation of a witness for grand jury, and whatever that witness indicated in the course of that was testified to before the grand jury and is contained within the minutes and contained within police reports of interviews with that same witness. So there's nothing to report.
All right. All right, the next motion is the Commonwealth's motion for reciprocal discovery. But before we begin with that, Mr. Lally, could you tell me what reciprocal discovery has been provided to the Commonwealth at this point?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
All right, so trial is 3 weeks from today. When did the Commonwealth provide its certificate
So the Commonwealth is unable to file its certificate of compliance at this point. The one, I would say, sort of primary piece that we're waiting on is there were 2 rounds of DNA testing that were done at the Bodie Lab in Virginia. One of those was completed. That was in regard to the defendant's taillight. That was finished, I think, first week of March, and counsel already has all of that. The second piece is in relation to the hair from the rear of the defendant's vehicle. Just for sort of review purposes, that was something that had gone or undergone sort of typical DNA testing, which is autosomal DNA testing, which is taking the profile from, or attempting to take the profile from the nucleus of the cell, and it relates to essentially both biological parents. That sample was of insufficient quality or quantity to generate a sample under the autosomal, so we had asked, and the court had ordered, for the mitochondrial DNA testing, which goes to the maternal side only. And the Bodie Lab is able to do that. My latest update from that, and I say all that just to build up as to a sort of caveat as far as the testing is concerned. So the initial estimate as far as the testing was would put us several weeks out. We had asked that it be expedited. We had paid for it to be expedited. And the quickest that they can turn around a report would be sometime in mid-April. The caveat to that is whether or not there is a sufficient quantity and quality for them to generate a mitochondrial DNA profile from the sample. That I should have an answer to, I was told, by the end of the month. So hopefully by either the end of this week or very early next week, because obviously if they aren't able to generate a mitochondrial DNA profile from the sample, then there's no reason to generate one from the victim and do a comparison. So that would sort of end it there, and then we would then be able to file the certificate of compliance.
All right. Every other aspect of the case, though?
Every other aspect of the case, as I mentioned, there was number 8 in the defendant's motion to compel that we should have to them by the end of this week, if not earlier. So every other aspect of the case as far as discovery goes should be done from the Commonwealth's perspective. And that's the reason that I filed the motion, Your Honor, at this time, understanding that they're not obligated under the rules of criminal procedure to provide anything, but given that we have an April 16th trial date and I have nothing as far as any sort of reports or notice of experts or testing or anything really at all, I'd appreciate being able to get that, review that, or at least see it, prior to the day we're impaneling.
All right. What do you say, counsel?
Your Honor, as you know, we do not owe them any reciprocal discovery until they file a certificate of compliance, which has not been done. I mean, we have received hundreds of pages of documents. I mean, 4 days ago, we received like 400 pages of documents we haven't gone through. Counsel just handed us a thumb drive with, I don't know what's on this thumb drive. We have to go through that. So we haven't given any reciprocal discovery because we are not obligated to do so.
Do you intend to call experts
Yes.
in areas other than DNA?
I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Jackson, who is on Zoom, to
All right,
answer.
but counsel to arguing these motions was to be present here in court today. Right?
Your Honor, if I can be here for just a second on that issue, Mr. Lally made it very clear that given the fact that he was not in compliance with his discovery obligations, that this motion was not to be heard today. So this is sort of coming out of nowhere.
No, hold on. So Mr. Lally doesn't decide what motions were to be argued. Today was for all non-evidentiary pretrial motions were to be argued. This was filed timely. This was on for today. If you feel that you cannot argue it, that's a different story. So you are muted. All right. Mr. Jackson, you're muted.
I don't know how I got muted. Yes, we are intending to call experts, and there are going to be experts that are in areas other than DNA as well. But we haven't provided discovery because we don't even know what the 400 pages that we just, or 500 pages that we just got 3 or 4 days ago include, nor the discovery that was handed to us this morning. As soon as the Commonwealth gets finished with their compliance obligations, we will then comply with our discovery obligations. We have every intention of doing so, and we're fully prepared to do so. We're waiting on them.
So once you get it from the Commonwealth, you can have it in a matter of a day or so, other than the DNA?
Well, I don't know if I can do it in a day, but once we have full...
You do know, if you're calling witnesses, you know who you're calling, correct?
I have an idea who I'm calling, yes.
All right, and you've engaged experts, so you've been working with experts, so you should have all that information ready to disclose, correct?
We're in the process of getting those decisions finalized, yes, but some of them are going to be predicated on what the Commonwealth discovery and the totality of the Commonwealth discovery looks like.
No,
that's their obligation.
No, I understand. All right, but you will be calling witnesses and you will be calling expert witnesses?
Absolutely.
All right. What is your estimate as to how long this case will take to try?
I assume if the Commonwealth case, I'm just throwing a dart at a dartboard, but based on what I know, if the Commonwealth case takes 3 to 4 weeks, I think our case would probably take 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lally, I suggest that you get that information as soon as possible. It could be that I strike it, but I would hear from the defense on that as well. But at least find out if they're able to do the testing.
Yeah, sure.
All right. All right. Thank you. You have your next date. We'll see you then.
So now that that's all lined up, we are just 3 weeks away from Karen Reed's trial, and we will see exactly what goes down then. 3 weeks. Next up, from one motion trial to another, one motion hearing to another, Donna Adelson is requesting to speed up her trial.
Big surprise! Donna Adelson wants some special consideration from the court. That is stunning. The wealthy mother and grandmother charged with the murder of her former son-in-law, Dan Markel, wants the judge to move her trial date up so it doesn't conflict with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Mama Donna's trial is currently set for September 30th, and her attorney is asking the court to move it to September 16th so that it doesn't conflict with the Jewish high holidays in the month of October. In the motion, Mama Donna's attorney says that they talked to the prosecutors and there's no objection to the request. So this tells me it's a pretty safe assumption the court will grant Mama Donna's request. It's a reasonable one. In fact, it's rooted in religion. The state has no objection to it. It's not delaying the trial in any way. As a matter of fact, it's allowing the trial to start sooner. I would be stunned if the court doesn't grant this motion. All that being said, where I think Mama Donna is delusional is that I think that she thinks she's gonna be home for those holidays. I hate to break it to you, Mama Donna, but only a religious miracle could get you out of the world of trouble that you are in. It could only be by the grace of God that Donna Adelson sees the outside world again, in my opinion. I think Mama Donna ought to prepare herself to experience those Jewish holidays in her prison cell. And during Yom Kippur, when she practices her atonement, you know, that's what it's all about, atonement. I sure hope Dan Markel is all she thinks about. He deserved so much better. And slowly but surely, he is getting the justice he deserves. And as Mama Donna goes on trial, we'll see if she gets what she deserves. That's my opening statement on this Wednesday morning. Let me know if you like it.
And basically, I'm lining up with everything Julie just said when I quote one of my favorite TikTokers on the app, who says, and I quote, "Delulu is not the Salulu." Think about that, Mama Donna. Oh man, next. From one trying to get her trial pushed up for the Jewish holidays, to prosecutors hoping to force a certain what's the word I'm going to use? Oh yeah, coward to appear at sentencing. Adam Montgomery did not appear throughout his whole entire trial in regards to the murder of his daughter, Harmony Montgomery. Now prosecutors say that he should be forced to appear at his sentencing. I personally agree, but I want to know what you think. Let's watch this.
And just a little bit of breaking news to pass along here. Prosecutors in New Hampshire have just filed a motion to compel Adam Montgomery to appear for sentencing after his murder conviction. And we all remember he decided not to attend his actual trial. They want him there for sentencing.
Yeah, you saw him there on the first day of jury selection during that trial, and then not again at all. He opted not to be transported there every day. And there's a law in New Hampshire that's on the books that if the victim or the victim's family members are giving impact statements at that sentencing, then the defendant has to be there in person to hear it. But it's a law that's rarely tested.
Yeah, last week apparently a House committee unanimously endorsed legislation to require that Class A felony defendants have to appear at their trials unless a judge agrees that an absence is advisable for a good cause shown, meaning had that law been in place, Montgomery would have been there for the entire trial.
If it had been pushed,
well.
and right, apparently it's been on the book since 2016, but now we will see if it actually happens or makes a difference. Of course, you saw here on Court TV him being convicted, absent, in the death of his 5-year-old daughter, Harmony Montgomery. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira, who has followed and analyzed this Montgomery case. Marie, I can guess your reaction to whether or not the prosecution should be able to compel Adam to be there, but what do you think as a former prosecutor that might look like if he is refusing, but he is then compelled, forced by the prosecution, by the jail to be there?
It's going to look like the prosecutors are advocating still for the victim even after the conviction, because just the fact that he didn't show up for the trial is disrespectful to the victim. And now he's been convicted and he doesn't want to come and face the music and hear the impact his actions had on everyone he left behind. I think he should be compelled to come, and I think he should be packed up, chained, and brought there if necessary, because he's not going to cooperate. He's probably going to fake sickness. He's probably going to be combative. They need to do whatever it is they need to do to subdue him, to bring him to court. That's the very least they can do right now.
He was serving prison time for the weapons conviction. It's unique. Normally, a prisoner is transferred to the local jail pending trial, and then the transfer every day is just a quick bring them on over to the courthouse kind of thing. This was unique in New Hampshire because the prison is close enough to the courthouse that they just did it daily back and forth to prison.
He did not want that strip search every day, is the report that we got.
Right, which makes sense.
Nothing to do.
Well, it makes sense.
It wasn't nothing to do with a strip search.
Oh, I think it had a lot to do with the clamoring and the attention that he was getting at the prison every day, getting up, leaving, coming back. What's he in for again? Killing a 5-year-old? That does not fly in a prison atmosphere. And I do believe a lot of it was like he didn't want the attention on him because of the transport.
And he knew he was lying. And he just didn't want to face the people that he hurt. He knew what he did, and he knew his defense wasn't going to fly. It had nothing to do with strip search. He just did not want to be accountable for what he did. He was defiant, he was in denial, and he was disrespectful. Now, with this law, they need to bring him in chains, dragging, screaming, if necessary. He has to face the music. That little girl, she at least deserved that.
And I've seen that happen where a defendant had to be brought in on a stretcher, would not relax their body, but they were brought in to make sure that they stood.
Hannibal Lecter muzzle.
Everything. It is possible what the courts have at their disposal.
Yeah, and it sounds like they are bound and determined to get him in court. In fact, the prosecutor, after the conviction, said, he's going to be here for the sentencing, and that's where it looks like it's going.
And in my opinion, he should be there. In my opinion, he ought to be there to hear exactly what he did and how he's going to be held accountable for it. So yes, bring him in chains. Yes, bring him shackled. Bring him. If you have to use the same mask they used for Hannibal Lecter, bring him. Bottom line, Adam Montgomery, you coward, it's time finally for you to face the music. Here's the first article that I mentioned earlier about on Sean Diddy Combs. That I will update you guys with, and here we are.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks for joining us here on Closing Arguments. And life often goes full circle, doesn't it? It's amazing. Like, here I am at Court TV 2024, and I go back in my time machine to the very first case I covered here on Court TV, right after the turn of the century. It involved a hip-hop star, producer. His name back then was, I believe it was Sean Puffy Combs, or maybe Sean Puff Daddy Combs. It was one or the other, but it was a gun possession charge in New York City. And what a big event it was, as he was facing jail, prison time for unlawful possession of a weapon. There were 3 people in the car: Sean Puffy Puff Daddy Combs, his limo driver, who he pointed the finger at. It was his gun, not mine. And Sean's girlfriend at the time, who didn't testify, but we waited for her the whole trial. Do you remember who it was? J-Lo. J-Lo. That was the witness. We were all waiting to testify to tell us whose gun was it. But the prosecution didn't call her, and the defense didn't call her. Well, the jury came back and said not guilty, because everybody in the case was suing Puff Daddy. Or was it Puffy? I can't remember. They were suing him, so their credibility went out the window, and he was found not guilty in that case. So now we go full circle, and you know what's happening now. This is much, much more serious than unlawful possession of a gun. The feds are now involved. The federal raid of, okay, is it P. Diddy? Is it just Diddy? Is it Love? Whatever he's calling himself, Sean Combs' house, his mansion, his sprawling mansion in LA and in Miami, raided by the feds. 2 properties belonging to, I guess you call him a music mogul. I mean, but it's more than music. It's like fashion and everything else. Television. Searched Monday by federal Homeland Security investigation agents and other law enforcement as part, and this is the key, right? An ongoing sex trafficking investigation by federal authorities in New York. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Okay, so they're executing some searches. Now, no one's under arrest yet, but they are apparently gathering evidence or looking for evidence, seizing things that belong to Diddy. Now, big story, right? It's everywhere. But where's Diddy? Not quite sure. We're going to try to find that out. In the meantime, his attorneys did finally release a statement today in response to all this and all the headlines and all the chatter. I want to read it to you in its entirety. Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. Mr. Combs was never detained, but spoke to and cooperated with authorities. That's interesting. So there was communication. Despite media speculation, neither Mr. Combs nor any of his family members have been arrested, nor has their ability to travel been restricted in any way. This unprecedented ambush, paired with an advanced coordinated media presence, leads to a premature rush to judgment of Mr. Combs and is nothing more than a witch hunt based on meritless accusations made in civil lawsuits. There's been no finding of criminal or civil liability with any of these allegations. Mr. Combs is innocent and will continue to fight every single day to clear his name. This is from Aaron Dyer, Diddy's attorney. Unprecedented, not necessarily. We've seen this before from the feds. When they show up en masse with lots of force to deter anyone. Doesn't matter who you are. That's the way they operate. So I wouldn't say it's unprecedented, but it may be unprecedented for Sean Combs for it to happen at his home. Now, they mentioned these civil lawsuits, and there have been a bunch of them. And I want to go through some of them right now. Let's begin with the one that was filed by R&B singer Cassie. This was one that grabbed a ton of headlines because Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Cassandra Ventura, they began dating back in 2007. They were like an item, on again, off again relationship for over a decade. But in that lawsuit that was filed by Cassie on November 16th of just last year, 2023, those allegations included that Diddy was prone to uncontrollable rage. His savage beatings included punches, kicks, and stompings. He allegedly gave her drugs and forced her to have sex with other men while he filmed it. Now, this was filed on November 16th, but it was settled the following day. We've got a statement from Cassie's attorney regarding what has happened now with this federal raid. We will always support law enforcement when it seeks to prosecute those who have violated the law. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a process that will hold Mr. Combs responsible for his depraved conduct. And that's Douglas Wigdor, the attorney for Cassie, part of that settlement. Now, part of the settlement was there was no admission of guilt or anything like that, or liability. Now, lawsuits number 2, 3, and 4 filed between November 24th and December 6th of last year, just after that settlement. These allegations are older. They include sexual coercion and choking until unconscious. That's back in 1990. Drug-induced rape in 1991. Drugging and raping a 17-year-old in 2003. Now, when all these lawsuits started to be filed after the settlement of the Cassie suit, Diddy finally spoke out by issuing a statement on social media, and he said this: "Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I've sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth." Okay. Now, where am I? Oh, lawsuit number 5. There's another one. This is the latest one. Now, this is not by a woman. This is by a man. His name is Rodney Jones, known as Lil Rod, and he's a producer and worked for Diddy, collaborated on the album, the Love album, Off the Grid. Now, the allegations by Lil Rod against Diddy is that this was filed in February, so this is the most recent. Diddy attempted to forcibly touch his intimate areas. Diddy, his associates, and his son, Justin Dior Combs, were participating in a sex trafficking venture. So, sex trafficking, is this the lawsuit then that has sort of kicked off this federal investigation? Or is it independent of these civil lawsuits? We don't know. The feds aren't talking yet. When the feds talk, they speak through indictments. That's how they do it. And they haven't gotten there yet. We haven't seen one. We've just seen the search in an ongoing sex trafficking investigation. So let's find out a little bit more. Let me bring in my special guest joining us tonight in Los Angeles, California, entertainment reporter and host of Kinsey's LA Diaries on Talk TV. Kinsey Schofield back with us. Kinsey, great to see you tonight. Let's talk first about reputation and where Diddy's reputation is like tonight, and where and has it been harmed by these lawsuits, or are people looking at these lawsuits as people looking for paydays? They don't really know what happened. What's the real vibe out there in the world of entertainment?
Well, also don't forget, in 2017, Diddy's ex-chef alleged that she was regularly made to serve food to Combs and his guests while they were engaged in sexual acts. He denied those allegations, but in February of 2019, he settled the lawsuit for an undisclosed sum. So whispers of bizarre behavior, whispers of, just nasty behavior, they have been around for a long time, Vinny. I would tell you tonight, his reputation is in the gutter. If it's trial by social media, which we never approve of, but trial by social media, this guy has a lot to do to regain the public's interest and faith in him.
Been around for so many years. I mean, at the top of the music world. You know, this is a. I mean, even you go back to that first trial, he was already there at that moment and has continued for decades. So, do we know where he is tonight?
You know, I believe he's still in Miami because he was questioned by customs agents in Miami yesterday at a private airport at the same time that his home was being raided. Now, Brendan Paul, described as Diddy's drug mule in the latest lawsuit, was booked on 2 separate drug charges. He was picked up at that airport. 1 count of possession of suspected cocaine and another of possession of suspected marijuana candy. So while, you know, Diddy's attorney stresses that none of his family members were arrested, one member of his entourage that is mentioned in this lawsuit by Rodney Lil Rod Jones was arrested in the process.
Now, I know, again, they deny all the allegations in the civil suits. They say that people are looking for a payday, that they're baseless, but there's a bunch of them building up. And we've seen this happen before with other powerful people in the entertainment world. So let's talk about this raid and this search. Do we have any idea what they were seizing inside these beautiful homes?
Absolutely. In connection to the raid, we're told that electronics have been seized. And sources told Rolling Stone that at least 4 Jane Does and 1 John Doe have been interviewed by New York prosecutors in connection to the sex trafficking allegations and a racketeering investigation.
Wow. Well, RICO, we saw that with R. Kelly. There were allegations of RICO. And when the feds went after R. Kelly, there was no place for him to go. I mean, he ended up getting convicted. We saw that happen. That came out of New York as well. Now, in that lawsuit, which the one from this year, there are other names that are thrown out there, like big names. What about Prince Harry? His name actually came up as an associate of Diddy.
Yeah.
What is there? I don't think there's an actual allegation against him other than kind of being kind of a friend or in the circle of Diddy. Do we know anything about this?
Isn't this wild, Vinny? This really feels like Rodney's team trying to elevate this, trying to give this argument some credibility by saying Diddy's a really intimidating character. Look at some of his friends. He hangs out with, you know, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. In reality, the only time I can find them photographed together was 2007 when Diddy performed at a concert in honor of Princess Diana. The last time I can find Diddy talking about Prince Harry is 2011 on the Graham Norton show, where he is, you know, he's joking about him and clearly does not have a relationship with the prince. So I just think that this is Rodney's team trying to say this is an influential character and kind of throwing Prince Harry under the bus here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a good look, you know, because, and we know social media has gone wild with this story, but, you know, there's obvious comparisons being done because of the nature of some of these allegations and the nature of this investigation. That is this like another Epstein deal where you've got someone with billions of dollars who's able to control people because of these parties he throws and other things that are happening. I don't know where that's going. But now, is Cuba Gooding Jr. now also a part of this case? Is he in the circle of Diddy as well?
Yes, sir. Now, Rodney actually alleges, Rodney Jones, that Diddy kind of offered Cuba, Diddy offered Rodney to Cuba, and that he felt vulnerable and unprotected, and that Cuba actually touched him several times and made him extremely uncomfortable on a yacht. And he has photos to kind of back up this experience where Cuba's arm is around him. So, you know, that, I think Cuba is probably not as high profile as Prince Harry, but much more damning allegations there.
Wow. I mean, this thing is... Now, any word from the feds at all? You know, from history, I've seen that they generally speak through their papers, right? If they believe someone is committed, they'll investigate something. If nothing comes of it, it just sort of disappears. But if they do find something, they bring it to a grand jury, they get an indictment, then you hear about the allegations through the indictments. But there's got to be a lot of pressure on them to provide some more information, since this is one of the biggest celebrities in the music world.
Well, a spokesperson for Homeland Security Investigations has told media that Homeland Security Investigations New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from Los Angeles and Miami law enforcement and other local law enforcement partners. So confirming that there is an investigation, but giving us little to no detail. And certainly no one is saying specifically that P. Diddy is under investigation. However, you're at both of his houses. I mean, I think it's pretty fair to assume.
Sometimes 2 + 2 = 4. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. Let me ask you this, because I'm curious, because, you know, when you reach a certain age, like, you stop buying new music, right? You know, you're listening to the oldies stations. You know, I'm listening to the 80s and the 90s. This album, the Love album, Off the Grid, the latest, I guess, from Diddy. Was that successful? Was he still, like, as an artist, big, or is he really making his money from clothes and all these other investments that he has?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe it was at least nominated for a Grammy, so it was celebrated critically. You know, I think I'm old too, Vinny. And you know what? I'm going to say something. You made me laugh a little bit at the beginning, because I did a TV show with Diddy, and every time I did an interview where I referred to him, I had to refer to him as 3 different names. P. Diddy was really funny today. I enjoyed my time with Sean Combs today, because they didn't know what his name was going to be at the time, so they had to do it for editing reasons. So when you were calling him all these different names, it was giving me a little bit of PTSD of my time working with Mr. Combs.
Yeah, exactly. And any other memories from working with Mr. Combs? Any observations? Anything that was not normal, or was it regular Hollywood kind of stuff?
Well, you know, my argument is, you know, he doesn't need Prince Harry to attract beautiful women. I planned an event for him, and the second you said to a beautiful woman, I'm throwing a party for P. Diddy, do you want to come? She was there. So I had a pleasant experience with him. I think these allegations are atrocious, and obviously I hope that they're not true. But I enjoyed my time with him.
All right. Kinsey Schofield, LA Diaries on Talk TV, always has the scoop for us. Thank you so much. We'll speak again, because this case is going to be around.
So much to unpack on all that, but I know that they will get to it, and when they get to the bottom of it, you will hear from me. Next up, a New York City police officer was fatally shot during a traffic stop. This is the officer on the left hand side of this banner, Jonathan Diller. A New York City police officer was shot and killed Monday during a traffic stop. According to the mayor, it was marked the first slaying of an NYPD officer in 2 years. We lost one of our sons today, and it was extremely painful. It is extremely painful, Mayor Eric Adams said, addressing reporters at the hospital where the officer died. The shooting happened just before 5:50 p.m. in the Far Rockaway section of Queens, police said, after Officer Jonathan Diller and his partner encountered a vehicle illegally parked at a bus stop. As they approached the vehicle, a man inside shot Diller below his bulletproof vest, said Commissioner Edward Kamen. Diller's partner returned fire and wounded the suspected shooter, who was brought to an area hospital. Diller was taken to Jamaica Hospital Medical Center but could not be saved. He had been with the police department for 3 years, was married, and had a young child, according to a tweet by the commissioner on X, formerly known as Twitter. We struggle to find the words to express the tragedy of losing one of our own, the commissioner said. The police department's chief of detectives, Joseph Kinney, said Diller and his partner had initially tried to order the vehicle's driver and passenger out of the car, which was stopped on a busy but narrow street in a bustling commercial district. He was asked to leave the car, Kinney said of the person who pulled the gun. He was given a lawful order numerous times to step out of the car. He refused, and when the officers took him out of the car, rather than stepping out of the car, he shot an officer. Kinney said Diller stayed in the fight after being wounded and tried to disarm the shooter, whose name was not immediately released by police. The gun hit the ground, and as the perpetrator was still reaching for it, this cop was able to grab it, although he was still shot. Witnesses described a chaotic scene, saying it happened so fast. 39-year-old Melissa Morgan said to the Daily News that the police officer fell on the floor and the other officers dragged the two guys out of the car, and I was running for cover. Deion Peters told the New York Post he saw Diller on the ground. He was moving. He was saying, "I'm hit. I'm hit." The slaying was the first of an NYPD officer since 2022 when two officers, 27-year-old Wilbert Mora and 22-year-old Jason Rivera, were ambushed at a Harlem apartment building responding to a domestic disturbance call. Adams, a former police captain, said he met with Diller's grieving widow. He called the shooting a senseless act of violence. Can I say it any clearer? It is the good guys against the bad guys, he said. And these bad guys are violent. They carry guns. And a symbol of our public safety, which is that police uniform, they have a total disregard for. One of the people in the vehicle had been arrested on a gun charge in April 2023. Patrick Hendry, president of the Police Benevolent Association of New York, expressed anger over the shooting. These attacks on New York City police officers have to end right now, he said. We have a family upstairs that's devastated. We have police officers in this hallway who lost a brother. It has to end now. While I agree to his statement, this kind of violence needs to end now. In fact, we're still talking violence, and we're still talking my old home in New York City. It's not just police. A New York subway rider pushed onto the tracks in a deadly attack. Subway rider pushed onto the tracks and killed by a train in the latest in a string of violent episodes in New York City's transit system that have prompted officials to beef up policing in the subway system. The shoving victim, who has not been identified, was pushed onto the tracks inside an East Harlem subway station shortly before 7 p.m. Monday, according to police. The operator of an oncoming number 4 train was unable to stop, and the person was killed. The suspected shover, 24-year-old Carlton McPherson, was arrested on a murder charge, according to a police spokesperson. No information about an attorney for McPherson was available Tuesday morning. The fatal push that happened on the same day New York City officials announced a plan to send 800 more police officers into the subway system to crack down on fare evasion. While officials have framed fare beating as a problem because of lost revenue, they say it contributes to a lawless atmosphere. The tone of law and order starts at the turnstiles, Transit Chief Michael Kemper said at a news conference on that Monday. Officers said overall crime in the transit system is down 15% so far this month compared to last year, but several high-profile shootings and slashings in the last few months have scared many commuters. Earlier this month, Governor Kathy Hochul announced she was sending National Guard troops to help conduct random bag checks in subway stations. Hours before Monday's news conference about the plan to send more officers into the system, A man was stabbed multiple times on a subway train in a dispute over smoking, police said. The suspect was arrested. Now, like I said, that's my old home. That's my old hometown, New York City. There is no need for that kind of senseless violence. I don't care if it's New York City, here in my hometown, my current hometown of Salem, Oregon, or anywhere. Crime needs to be cracked down to zero, number one. And number two, violent crime needs to be cracked down to zero, number one. And number two, as far as gun violence goes, I stick to my guns and say a lot of assault weapons need to be off the street. Like now. And I'm not saying that for political reasons either. Next up. An inmate is injured after being hit by a car minutes after escaping prison. Ooh, ain't that your luck. Police in Hawaii are searching for a driver who hit an escaped inmate from Kauai Community Correctional Center in a hit and run. According to the Kauai Police Department, 33-year-old inmate Matthew J. Ornelas Jr. had escaped from prison around 1 a.m. on Friday, and just 10 minutes after escaping, his luck ran out as he was found with serious injuries from being hit with a vehicle. The driver of the vehicle fled the scene prior to the arrival of first responders. Witnesses described the vehicle as dark-colored, but were unable to identify the make or model. The 33-year-old inmate was transported to Wilcox Memorial Hospital, where he remains in serious condition, according to a press release. Police say that the driver appeared to be traveling south on the highway toward Lihue and failed to stop when they hit Ornelas and continued to make a U-turn toward Kappa. Ornelas is a minimum custody inmate, and police say he's serving time for promoting a dangerous drug in a third degree, a Class C felony. Authorities are asking the public if they have any information on the driver. The police call Crime Stoppers Kauai at 808-246-8300. That's 808-246-8300. Scripps News reached out to the Kauai Police Department to obtain any updates or more information on the matter, but has yet to hear back. And as always, when they get more information, I'll get it, and when I get it, guaranteed, you guys will get it too. Next up, an update on the upcoming Chad Daybell case, which kicks off, let's see, what's today? 30th? Monday. Hold on a second, guys. I was still muted.
Jury selection in the case against the doomsday cult prophet Chad Daybell starts next week in Idaho. Now, he is charged with killing his wife, Lori Vallow Daybell's 2 children, and his first wife, Tammy. Now, it's a case that thrusts the accused killer's defense attorney, John Pryor, into the national spotlight.
All I can say is that he reached out to me, and that's how it started. And at this point, we're ready to go forward, and he wants to tell his story. I'm doing this myself, so that makes things a little challenging, but fortunately, I've had about 3 years and 10 months to go through all the evidence, to sort of look at what I want to present to the jury, and I'm looking forward to my opportunity to do that. I'm grateful that Judge Boyce decided to move the trial over to Ada County. one of the main reasons I'm grateful is I know the folks in Ada County. I've spent better than half my life living here.
Now, Chad's wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, was convicted last year of the same charges. She is serving 3 life sentences in Idaho while gearing up to head to trial in Arizona for the death of her ex-husband. Now, Pryor says he can't rule out the possibility that she may testify.
It's possible. It's always possible. Anybody who's connected to a case could be called. And I don't want to specify, and I want to be clear. I'm not telling you that I am or that the state is or anybody else is. Okay. But anybody could be called. If you have an involvement in this case, potentially you could become a witness in this case.
All right, joining us still to discuss, criminal defense attorney Joe Tamburino, and joining us now, legendary homicide detective Phil Waters. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on the program. But Joe, I'm going to begin with you because I want to set out the parameters of this case. And what I mean is the death penalty is on the table in this case. It was not in Lori's case. I think that changes the way Daybell's attorney, or Chad Daybell's attorney, is going to approach this case. And I want you to speak on that. How does it change your approach, knowing there's a lot of evidence against your client, but you really just want to keep him out of that electric chair, away from the death penalty?
Thank you. I've never worked on a death penalty case, and here in Minnesota, we don't have the death penalty. However, I would think that 2 things would apply. The first is you're going to challenge everything that you can. There's just no doubt about it, because if you don't, obviously your client's facing death and, presumably would be put to death if he's convicted. But secondly, what you could try to do in order to get him out of the death penalty phase is project blame on someone else. And who would that be? It would be Lori. Because one of the ways you can try to get out of a death penalty case is to show that you were not the main actor, to show that you're less culpable, some type of mitigating circumstances, something to say, yes, this person should be found guilty, but not of a murder count which would give him death rather than life in prison. So that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, I agree. That seems to be the best way to go. Now, we saw in Lori's trial, Phil, that she didn't want to, or she seemed reluctant to place him under the microscope and point the finger at Chad Daybell. I'm not sure he's going to have a problem with her. As a matter of fact, the question is, do you put her on the stand? Do you try to call her? Will she even bother to testify? If she did, what you got from her, I'm not even sure would be worth anything. What I want to do is I'm going to listen to her brother, Adam Cox, and he talks about the last conversation he had with her. And I'm playing this so that you can get a listen to the types of things we may hear from her if she takes the stand. Let's take a listen.
It's been it's unbelievable what happened. Like, it's something that you just never think would ever happen to your family, and then it happens, and you see people on TV talk about this all the time. I just never thought that would happen to my family, and I just never even came close to thinking anything like this would happen. So it's really hard to figure out how to process it. How it's been 4 years, and I'm still trying to process it and try to heal from it, make sense of it, and so it's definitely a difficult life experience. I'm sure. With Lori, obviously Lori was a different person, but this wasn't an overnight thing. We talk about this in one of my podcasts that, it wasn't just one day she snapped. I think this was maybe 2 or 3 years of her going down a path. And then when she met Chad, it's like putting gas on the fire. But as far as delusional goes, I remember being at her house, and we have family gatherings at her and Charles's house all the time. And, she had been going down this path of, talking about the end of the world and things like that. So when we were talking in the kitchen, she had mentioned that she's transitioning into a translated being. Immortal being, that she didn't have to eat anymore, and if somebody shot her with a gun, the bullet wouldn't affect her. So when she was saying stuff like that, I just looked at her and I said, well, Lori, that's not true. And she said, you think I'm crazy, don't you? And I was like, I don't know if you're crazy or not. I just know that what you're telling me is not true. And that literally was the last conversation we had.
Phil Waters, I mean, it's a decision that they have to make. I don't think it would make a lot of sense, but your thoughts on whether, you put her on the stand and she says some stuff like that, she could convince a juror or two that she's the one, the crazy one, that was behind all of this and maybe save Chad's life.
Well, Michael, good to be back with you. I tell you, in homicide, we had a technical term for people like this, and we would call them a nut. So I would have to tell you that, you know, they're crazy, but they're not insane. So this continues to play out, and and I'll use the word the nuttiness of this whole scenario in terms of her and him, and they get together, and then they've got this whole new sense of where they're going and this immortality in these things. And I tell you, it's tough to understand how people get to that point in life, but she is one of those that did, and I guess she had this, you know, Chad apparently was her mentor in furthering these delusional activities going on in her brain housing group. So it's fascinating to watch, I will tell you that.
It really is. It really is. And you know what's interesting about it, Joe, is you heard her brother talk about the fact that she was kind of already headed down this weird path. And then she meets Chad, and that's like adding, you know, fuel to the fire. But again, that argument in and of itself could be a fruitful one for the defense. Again, if we're talking about not necessarily a not guilty, but keeping him away from the death penalty.
Yes, I mean, you know, Chad's going to know her the best. I mean, and I agree with the guest. This is a nutty situation. And if he knows her the best and he's willing to roll the dice, perhaps he will call her and she could accept the blame, the primary blame. He's never getting off, but she could accept the majority of liability, of culpability. And if that's the case and it flies, he'll get out of the death penalty.
Yeah, I think that's where they're going to go. I mean, the death and destruction followed her. Her hair was on the duct tape that wrapped around her kids. The kids were hers, so she had to acquiesce to anything that happened to him. Her brother is this sort of shadowy figure in the background. You know, you play on those things. Again, it could help them out.
And that's what we're getting ready to deal with on April 1st when the Doomsday Prophet murder trial takes place. Chad Daybell in the fight for his life. Next up is a story that it's already tugged at my heartstrings, and I am still hoping against hope that this young man is found.
Was Sebastian Rogers kidnapped? We're talking about what could tip the scales of justice as the search for the 15-year-old just hit the 1-month mark this week. This morning, volunteers are continuing the search for him. Now, Rogers, who has autism, disappeared in the middle of the night, barefoot with a flashlight. We know that he was living with his mother and his stepfather, who say that his stepdad was at work at the time that Sebastian disappeared.
About midnight, I got up and I went to bed. And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he wasn't here.
So where did Sebastian go? Nick Barris from Scripps News Nashville breaks down for us some video of what could be a pair of flashlights seen that night.
You see 2 light sources, which we've circled to help you follow. For point of reference, the security camera was pointed toward the back of Sebastian's home in a common area. In the video, you see subject 1 with a light source in the lower right-hand corner. Then you see subject 2 briefly appear and move toward the first before that light source is covered or obscured by bushes. Subject 1, a few seconds later, then moves out of frame. Then, subject 2 reappears and follows subject 1 off screen. It's a short time later, and it's very vague, but then you see one of the subjects moving quickly back through the common area, and that is it.
So what does that mean? Let's bring in our guest. He's the chief of police at Talladega College. He's a retired homicide detective, and you've seen him on Discovery ID's popular show, Reasonable Doubt. He's also been on the First 48. I know our viewers are happy to see him this morning. Chief Chris Anderson is with us. Chief, good morning to you. This case,
Hey,
my
good morning.
goodness, as you know, people around the country are following this, wondering if something sinister happened to this child. Tell me, first question, do you think police should be focusing on mom and stepdad?
You know, this is way too early in the investigation to stop focusing on anything right now. You have to focus on whatever leads you have and investigate every lead fully before you can let any portion of this investigation go. So, yeah, I think you should be focusing on the mom and dad. You should be focusing on the videos just as they're doing.
I've got a clip for you from Dad saying Sebastian would not go outside the house without his shoes on. Let's watch.
He decided that he wanted to step into a mound of what he thought was dirt, and it was fire ants. And since then, it's always been, he doesn't like to get his feet in the dirt. He likes to have his socks and shoes on.
Okay, so to be clear, that's his biological father. His first name is Seth. So he's saying this is suspicious to him. Chief, what does that mean to you coming from Sebastian's father?
You have to take everything that the father and the ones that his loved ones, the ones that knew him best, everything they say at its face value. So if his father says that it's strange that he would him leaving out of the house without his shoes or socks on, then you better believe that it's strange for him to leave out of the house with his shoes and socks on. You should pause for a little bit of concern when a parent says something like that as an investigator.
Certainly, I appreciate it, Chief. Let's listen to what some of the searchers are saying.
I definitely stand behind Seth. We try to follow him where he goes. I hope somebody finds something.
I just can't imagine what he's going through. He's just been, asking for help and been involved in the search for Sebastian was something that hit close to home. I actually have 5 boys, so I just can't imagine what that would be like.
Chief, realistically, I mean, I know we're all hoping for the best. We're hoping for Sebastian's safe return. But knowing what you know about cases like this one, are you confident he'll be brought home safe?
You know, as a father, I want to remain as confident as possible that my son will be coming home safely. But as an investigator, you have to deal with the realism of it. This young man is a child that suffers with autism. He is without his medications. He's been in an area where the temperatures and weather will affect him. So as an investigator, these are very concerning portions of the investigation. So. But I want to remain confident as a father.
All right. I'm going to give you the details courtesy of the Class Foundation real quick. And I want everybody to pay close attention. He's been missing for a good month now. Missing as of February 26, 2024 out of Hendersonville, Tennessee. He's 15 years of age. At the time of his disappearance, he stood about 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed around 120 pounds, with dirty blonde hair or brown hair, depending on how you look at it, and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing black sweatpants with white stripes and a black long sleeve T-shirt and glasses. He is as you've heard, he's autistic. He's without medication that can help him return to his own place safely. This is where you come in. If you have any information about the disappearance of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, you are asked to call the Sumner County Sheriff's Office at 615-451-3838. 615-451-3838. You're also asked to get in contact with the FBI's field office, the local FBI field office in Tennessee. You're asked to get in contact with 911. But whatever you do, ladies and gentlemen, please, I beg of you, if you see something, say something. All right, let me close that tab, and I can go ahead to the next story. More Alex Murdaugh news, real quick. Ooh. All right. I won't say a word to this. I'll let this video speak for itself.
We have new developments in the Alec Murdaugh financial crimes case. Federal prosecutors want to take a plea deal off the table with him. They say Murdaugh didn't tell the truth to FBI agents when they asked where the more than $6 million that he stole is and who helped him steal it. The claims were filed in court documents on Tuesday. Prosecutors want a judge to revoke their end of the plea deal and order a maximum sentence of more than 100 years in prison when Murdaugh is sentenced. Now, the plea deal would have allowed Murdaugh's federal sentence to run concurrent to the 27 years he was sentenced to by the state for stealing money from his clients and his law firm. Take a listen to his apology to the victims last November.
I did terrible things. Each of you placed your trust in me. I was very proud of that, and I'm still today honored by that fact that I deceived each of you. Terrible. I did terrible things. I am so sorry, and that I hate and am so bothered by the things that I did. My hopes that seeing me punished will help each of you heal.
Now, Murdaugh's attorneys have not responded to messages about the filing by federal prosecutors. Each of the 22 counts Murdaugh pleaded guilty to in federal court carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. Prosecutors say they want the stiffest sentence possible. Murdaugh will be sentenced next Monday. All right, let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining me right now is criminal defense attorney Joe Marino. Great to see you. Thank you for joining me here on the program. It's been a minute. Great to have you on the show. Let's begin right there with Alec Murdaugh. First and foremost, I'm going to put this out there. I know what the answer is, but any surprise at all that he's having trouble telling the truth about where some money may be hidden and who else might have helped him with some of these crimes?
No surprise at all. And what happens in these types of situations where you have plea bargains with the federal government is you have to tell the truth. And, you know, through my experience with dealing with federal prosecutions, the first thing they do, if they feel that you are not telling the truth, if your client doesn't pass a polygraph, because sometimes that is required, is they'll pull the deal. So this is not surprising.
Now, at the end of the day, the feds, they want to give restitution to the victims if they can. And I think they believe that he's hiding money. They also want the names. They believe there were other attorneys involved in this. And according to a polygraph, they say that he's not telling the truth. Is that enough for a judge to look at this? Because I would imagine, and you tell me from your experience, when you go to the judge, you're going to have to present the reasons why you want to back out of this deal. They're going to show this polygraph. Is that enough?
I don't think the polygraph is enough because polygraphs aren't admissible in court. Now, they're used all the time. I mean, they're used for investigation purposes all the time. They're used for treatment purposes, such as sexual offender programs, all the time. But the government probably has some other evidence as well, rather than just the polygraph, in order to ask to revoke this. I'm sure what the government is worried about is not only does he not want to name other attorneys, but think about it. If he is hiding some money somewhere, they're wondering where could they get that so they could get it to the rightful people, which are the victims in the case.
Now, the final thing I want to ask is, what is the possibility now, once they sort of back away from the initial plea deal, how does the defense respond to that? You're representing him, and you find out that now they want the stiffest sentence possible. Do you now back out and say, well, then, you know, if that's going to be the case, let's just take this to trial. We have a better chance there than we do just accepting you, giving us the stiffest penalty possible.
That's correct. I mean, what the defense is going to say is they have nothing to lose with everything that is up against Mr. Murdaugh. Forget about state appeals and everything like that. The chances of him winning those are always low. They could just say, we're just going to roll the dice. We literally have nothing to lose. I don't know if the judge is going to revoke this deal. Now, of course, I haven't seen any of the paperwork, but if it's just based on this polygraph, I think the government's going to have more than that.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so you're saying that's not necessarily a done deal. This is what the state, I mean, the feds want to do, but it has to be accepted by the judge, correct?
Correct, that's correct.
Yow. If that plea deal is taken off the table, Alex Murdaugh is in serious, serious trouble. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, moving right along here. Now, remember earlier we had a story about somebody filming people age range between 4 to 85 at a Starbucks using the restroom. This has to be equally as sick. A teacher arrested for secretly recording students undressing. Then again, I don't need to read the article. I'll let you see this for yourself.
Teachers are often our role models, our heroes, representing the very best in our community. But tonight, a Glendale teacher is accused of being the exact opposite. ABC 15's Josh Cristianto detailing the accusations at Independence High that include possible secret cameras and multiple students being victimized.
And police telling us 53-year-old Esteban Carrion has been arrested for allegedly secretly filming students as they were changing. According to court documents, Carrion invited 6 students to campus over spring break for an extra credit project with the school's media club that he led. The documents allege Carrion set up spy cameras in a changing room where students switched into different outfits for the project. Police say as they were changing, 2 of the students noticed a power charger plugged into an outlet. That device turned out to have a hidden camera inside. The 2 told the rest of the group what they found, and they eventually found 2 more hidden cameras. Police say Carrion soon discovered 1 camera missing and started pressing the students to hand it over.
Eventually got to the point where he was checking the students' pockets, making them empty out their pockets, check their backpacks. And acting kind of frantic is what the students noticed.
The students were able to leave and contact their parents and police. Officers searched Carrion's home and say they found explicit video of those students. Police arrested him on Monday, and the school district put him on leave. He faces multiple charges, including voyeurism and sexual exploitation of a minor. The victims were 2 boys and 4 girls, all between the ages of 15 to 17. Police are still investigating whether there are any additional victims in this case. Reporting in Glendale, Josh Cristianto, ABC 15, Arizona.
Gosh. God, this is sickening even for someone to be a teacher. I'm looking forward to getting an update on these charges. Now we got an update on the Ahmaud Arbery's killers. They're seeking to overturn their hate crime convictions. Here's what's going down. The attorneys for 3 white men who chased and killed Ahmaud Arbery in a Georgia subdivision asked the federal appeals court on Wednesday to throw out their hate crime convictions, arguing that prosecutors relied on their history of racist comments without proving they targeted Arbery because he was black. At the end of the day, this issue isn't about racism of these defendants. A.J. Balbo, representing Greg McMichael, told a 3-judge panel of the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta. It's about whether or not the government met its burden. Their arguments also stayed beyond the core of the issue of whether a racist intent to harm motivated the February 23, 2020 pursuit that ended with Arbery shot dead in the street. Defense attorneys raised legal technicalities, including their contention that prosecutors failed to prove Arbery was killed on a public road. Federal prosecutors countered that the trial jury in 2022 heard sufficient evidence to find the trio guilty of hate crimes as well as attempted kidnapping. Racist views evidenced by the men's prior text messages and social media posts, they said, informed their mistaken assumption that Arbery was a fleeing criminal. The hate-fueled violence that the defendants inflicted on Ahmaud is precisely the type of conduct that Congress targeted when it passed the Civil Rights Act, said Brant Levine, an attorney for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Father and son Greg and Travis McMichael armed themselves with guns and used a pickup truck to chase Arbery after spotting the 25-year-old man running in their neighborhood outside of the port city of Brunswick. A neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, joined the pursuit in his own truck and recorded cell phone video of Travis McMichael shooting Arbery at close range with a shotgun. More than 2 months have passed without arrest until Bryan's graphic video of the killing leaked online and a national outcry erupted over Arbery's death. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over the case from local police and charges soon followed. All 3 men were convicted of murder in a Georgia state court in late 2021, followed months later by the federal hate crimes trial. In their oral arguments and legal briefs, lawyers for Greg McMichael and Bryan cited the prosecutors' use of more than 24 social media posts and text messages, as well as witness testimony that showed all 3 men using racist slurs or otherwise disparaging black people. Bryan's attorney, Pete Theodosian, called it some of the ugliest, most repulsive evidence any of us have ever heard in a trial, and explosive enough that prosecutors could sway a jury without proving a racist intent to harm Arbery himself. When the jury hears that evidence, we have to make sure that the government is actually presenting some evidence as to all the essential elements of crimes because it is such an uphill battle. Balbo said Greg McMichael initiated the pursuit of Arbery because he mistakenly suspected him of being a fleeing criminal. He had seen security camera videos in prior months that showed Arbery entering a neighboring home under construction. When Arbery ran past McMichael's home on February 2020, Balbo argued Greg McMichael recognized him from those videos by his height, his weight, his tattoos, and his manner of dress. If this person had been a 60-year-old black man, Greg McMichael would not have engaged him, Balbo said. The race was a non-contributing role in this matter. One of the judges sounded skeptical. Judge Britt Grant, nominated to the appeals court by former President Donald Trump, said the trial evidence of racist intent behind Arbery's killing seems pretty overwhelming to me. None of the videos showed Arbery stealing, and police found no stolen property or weapons on his body. Judge Elizabeth Lisa Branch, another Trump appellate court nominee, and district court judge Victoria Culvert, who was nominated by President Joe Biden to the federal bench and is serving temporarily on the 11th Circuit Court, also heard the arguments. The judges did not indicate how long they might take to rule. The legal technicalities raised by the defense included Travis McMichael's attorney, Amy Lee Copeland, arguing that prosecutors failed to prove the streets of the Satilla Shore subdivision, where Arbery was killed, were public roads, as stated in the indictment used to charge the men. Copeland cited records of a 1958 meeting of Glenn County Commissioners in which they rejected taking ownership of the streets from the subdivision's developer. Prosecutors counted that service request records and trial testimony from a county official showed the streets had been maintained by county government for decades. I'm just going to stop right there. They have all the evidence they need. And I'm not just talking the all the texts and messages posted to social media. I'm talking about the video evidence. They have the video evidence of the McMichaels chasing down Ahmaud Arbery with Roddy behind them chasing him in his own truck, filming the whole thing. They have the video evidence of Travis McMichael shooting Ahmaud Arbery at close range. What other evidence do they need to hold that conviction up? What's your opinion? I'd like to know. Next. Chad Dorman. Days after a judge agrees to throw out his confession to murdering his sons, Chad Dorman has formally pleaded not guilty because of insanity. Dorman was arrested on June 15, 2023, after allegedly shooting and killing his 3 young sons outside of their Ohio home. He's charged with 9 counts of aggravated murder, 8 counts of kidnapping, and 4 counts of felonious assault in the deaths of 7-year-old Clay, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. On March 15th, Clermont County Judge Richard P. Farrick granted a motion from Dorman's defense seeking to throw out his confession after his arrest, ruling that his rights were violated. During the interrogation, Dorman asked for an attorney twice, but police continued to question him. Not good. Part of Dorman's argument for having the interrogation tossed was his mental condition at the time. But in his decision granting the motion, Judge Farrick ruled that justification for the claim was sufficient, noting that no evidence of Dorman's state of mind has been offered at the hearing or in the filings. Judge Farrick ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be conducted to assess Dorman's condition at the time of the murders. Wednesday, prosecutors in the case filed a motion for jury view, which would mean the panel seated to hear the case would be brought to the Dorman home at some point during the trial. Let me check my. All right. As far as Chad Dorman's case goes, the police, for lack of a better phrase, effed up. I'm saying it just like that. They effed up. I'll say it like I said last week. If at any time a criminal defendant says, anytime that happens, you stop questioning that suspect. You stop questioning the suspect. Period. That's why the confession was tossed out. Now with a not guilty plea by reason of insanity, we'll see exactly how this plays out. Next, we go to Illinois. Now, this case out of Illinois, this is what I was talking about earlier from a case in New York. In this case, 4 dead, 7 injured in Illinois stabbing attacks. At least, let's see, no video accompanying this. At least 4 people were killed, and 7 others injured in attacks that involved stabbings in the areas of Cleveland Avenue, Holmes Street, and Eggleston Road in Rockford, Illinois. Rockford police said a 22-year-old adult male was taken into custody after he was accused of stabbing multiple people. The Rockford Register-Star reported that a mail delivery worker was included in the dead, and at least one of the injured people was in critical condition. At least 5 of the other injuries were considered serious. Police said that there was no motive for the attacks. No motives determined, that is. In a post to social media, police said included in the dead are a 15-year-old female, a 63-year-old female, a 49-year-old male, and a 22-year-old male. Police asked residents in the area to review any available video from the time of the attacks to provide any useful information amid the investigation. Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara said at a press conference, quote, "I think like most Rockfordians, totally shaken by this act of violence and the impact that it's having now on multiple families' lives. So certainly my prayers are with them as they are just beginning to deal with what will be really difficult days and weeks ahead," end quote. Police said they were working on investigating multiple scenes and said multiple jurisdictions were involved. Witnesses described seeing bloody people being taken into ambulances. Resident Eric Patterson told the Rockford Register-Star it appeared that a mail carrier was struck by a vehicle and their delivery equipment was scattered across the yard. And still, what's being done? Something's got to be totally done to end violent crime. All right, next up, this quickly hitting Thursday's docket. Sam Bankman-Fried. Even though prosecutors recommended a sentence between 40 and 50.
In a New York courtroom less than 2 hours ago, former crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
A jury in November convicted the fallen CEO of FTX of fraud and conspiracy for illegally using investors' money to cover personal expenses. Prosecutors had recommended a sentence of 40 to 50 years. His attorneys asked for 6.5 years. Correspondent Will Denslow is live in New York City. Will, this has been called one of the largest financial frauds in history. Can you walk us through the details of his sentencing?
Well, before the judge made a determination, we got to hear from the prosecution, from the defense, as well as Sam Bankman-Fried himself. As far as the prosecution are concerned, they've described Sam Bankman-Fried as a megalomaniac. They said he was a risk of committing fraud in the future. That's why they're pushing for up to 40 years behind bars. His defense team, however, said that he's no financial serial killer, calling for leniency to the tune of no more than 6.5 years behind bars. Now, significantly, we also heard from SBF himself. He said that he recognized he made a lot of bad decisions. He says that those decisions continue to hurt him. We have heard, though, ultimately from Judge Lewis Kaplan, who didn't seem too impressed with what SBF had to say. He said that during this trial and during this sentencing, SBF never showed a word of remorse for the commission of what the judge described as terrible crimes.
Any word from Bankman-Fried's legal team regarding plans to appeal?
Of course, Sam Bankman-Fried had pleaded not guilty to all 7 counts he faced. He maintains that while mistakes were made, he didn't make these mistakes maliciously. His legal team said that there will be appeals both in the sentencing as well as the verdict that was reached back in November as well. Significantly on that issue of sentencing, Judge Lewis Kaplan has called that Sam Bankman-Fried not serve in a maximum security prison. He says that he is not a risk to commit acts of violence. He says that his particular status, his wealth, his notoriety puts him in a vulnerable position as well. The judge also calling him to be located on the West Coast in San Francisco so he can be a little closer to his family.
All right, Will Denslow reporting from New York City. Thank you very much.
Again, Sam Bankman-Fried sentenced to 25 years in prison. If you ask me, justice served. Next, we got a charge out of nowhere. Anybody ever followed the Brittany Drexel murder knows about Raymond Moody's conviction, but now his girlfriend is about to be charged with lying to the FBI. Angel Vows is charged with 3 counts of making a false statement to federal investigators, according to court documents obtained by Court TV. Vows was dating Raymond Moody when he killed Drexel in 2009, Brittany Drexel. The charges accuse Vows of lying to investigators in 2022, around the time Moody turned himself into authorities and confessed to Drexel's death. Moody, who led authorities to Drexel's body, said the night the teen was killed, he offered her marijuana and she voluntarily went to his campsite with him. That's according to the Associated Press. He claimed Vows was with him when he picked Drexel up, but after she left, Moody killed Drexel when she refused to have sex with him. The charges against Vows allege she lied about 3 factors when telling investigators about the night Drexel disappeared. The first charge accuses Vows of lying about her whereabouts after leaving Moody and Drexel. The second charge alleges Vows took Drexel's cell phone and disposed of it. The third accuses Vows of lying when she said Drexel voluntarily joined them to consume marijuana and cocaine, when in fact Drexel was abducted under false pretenses. The grand jury charges were filed March 26th in a sealed indictment. Authorities said Vows was arrested and arraigned the next day. To witnesses, you got to remember this: when you get on that witness stand, they ask you if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and you swear to it. Back up your swearing by actually telling the truth. Now, I'm going to quickly go through this one because I earlier touched on a Corey Richards update, but now we have a filing saying that she texted her secret paramour the night her husband died. There are 3 separate references to an anonymous person whom prosecutors called her paramour were made in the March 26 filings that added 7 more charges to Corey's rap sheet, including 2 counts of mortgage fraud, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and 3 counts of forgery. On March 3rd, 2022, the night of Eric Richardson's death, excuse me again, prosecutors say Corey's paramour texted her a photograph of 2 people kissing that was captioned, "Love you." Then a little more an hour later, Corey allegedly responded, "Love you too," with a kissing emoji. That night, Corey told investigators she made herself and Eric a celebratory drink that they drank sitting in the bed. They went to sleep shortly after, but Eric never woke up again. Jumping ahead, I'm gonna jump ahead real quick. She texts her best friend with an entirely different account of the Valentine's incident, saying it was Valentine's Day, and Eric and I were both working from home that day, and I ordered lunch from the diner. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was blank with him. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, and so he was going to take a nap. No hives, no EpiPen, quote unquote. The Richards family feud. She sent a text to her paramour saying, "I'm lost. I'm lost in on Eric's sister. I lost it on Eric's sisters finally and punched her a couple of times." Angry emoji. My brother ripped me off of her before it got too intense. She called cops. It was at my own house because I told her to leave and she wouldn't. Said this is her brother's and she didn't have to. So I said, get out or I'll get you out. End quote. And regarding the alleged affairs, in regard to the alleged affairs, the last thing she texted out was, I just want this over. I just want our lives back and to move on and grieve more than my husband without looking over my shoulder constantly for you guys or the idiotic private investigator or the Richards family. Whatever I can do to help close this out, just ask. I'll give you or tell you whatever you need to know. Corey Richards, as far as I know, ooh, wait, hang on, guys. My video is acting up. There we go. Okay, now that I got my camera straight, like I said, Corey Richards is in hot water. And if she was in more hot water, she'd be boiling at this point. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly what comes next. And her trial hasn't even started yet. Next, we got 4 minor leaguers charged with insider trading of Del Taco stock. Jeez. 4 minor league baseball players. Go figure that one. 4 current and former minor league baseball players have been charged with insider trading. Jordan Quar, Austin Bernard, Grant Witherspoon, and Chase Lambert are accused of illegally trading shares of the restaurant chain based off information bought by Jack in the Box in 2021. The group allegedly made $190,000 in profits off the merger, according to a complaint filed by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Court documents claim that Quar, who was a minor league baseball player at the time, learned about the acquisition deal before it was formally announced, who worked in finance at Jack in the Box. The complaint alleged the employee, who was not charged or identified in court documents, believed Quar was private. Instead, prosecutors said Quar purchased call options at the time and tipped off other current or former teammates about the deal. They also reportedly purchased call options. After news of the merger was made public, Taco from $7.53 to $12.51 per share